Standing at gate 76, Dad commanded, "You made your sister cry. Fix it," after she slapped me for the trip I paid for. I walked away and canceled their tickets. The moment those words left his mouth, something inside me shifted. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter, colder. A realization that after 28 years of being the responsible daughter, the family ATM, the silent fixer of everyone else's problems, nothing had changed. The slap still burned across my cheek, but what hurt more was watching my parents rush to comfort Jessica, my younger sister, without even glancing at the red mark spreading across my face. The Los Angeles terminal was packed with mourning travelers, at least 200 people who'd just witnessed my humiliation. Phones were raised, recording. A TSA officer glanced over, unsure whether to intervene. My mother stroked Jessica's hair while she sobbed dramatically into her shoulder, mascara somehow perfectly streaked like she'd practiced. "She's been ruining the trip all week," Jessica whimpered, the lie sliding out so smoothly it barely surprised me anymore. "I need a minute," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. Dad waved dismissively. "Fine, but don't wander off. Boarding starts in 20 minutes. As I walked toward the restrooms, my mind began cataloging everything with the precision I'd developed as a senior marketing analyst at one of LA's top tech firms. The Hawaii trip, $18,000 total. 4 premium seats at $2,200 each. 2 ocean view suites at the Grand Wailea for 7 nights. $4,500. Rental SUV, excursions, meals I'd prepaid. Another $4,700. All on my American Express, all under my name, all while Jessica stood at that family dinner 5 weeks ago, champagne glass raised, announcing she was treating everyone to Hawaii while our parents gasped in delight. I found a quiet corner near the vending machines and pulled out my phone. My hands had stopped shaking. The trembling had been replaced by something else entirely. Clarity, cold, mathematical clarity. The same mindset I used when analyzing market trends, identifying patterns, making strategic decisions that had earned me a $275,000 base salary, plus bonuses that regularly pushed me over $400,000 annually. My parents had no idea about my actual income. They thought I made decent money doing computer stuff. They never asked for details, never showed interest in my career beyond whether I could help with their bills. Jessica certainly didn't know. She was too busy switching retail jobs every 3 months and building her Instagram following to notice that her older sister had quietly become a millionaire before 30. I opened my banking app first, checking. $67,000, savings, $340,000, investment portfolio, $1.2 million, carefully diversified across index funds and tech stocks. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Jessica posted inspirational quotes about manifesting abundance and attracting success, I'd been methodically building actual wealth, funding her lifestyle, and keeping quiet about it. The airline app opened with my saved credentials. 4 tickets to Honolulu, all under my reservation, all paid with my card. I tapped the customer service number. "American Airlines, this is Patricia. How may I assist you today?" "I need to modify a reservation," I said, my voice carrying the same professional tone I used in board meetings. "I'll be canceling 3 of 4 tickets." "I can help with that. May I have your confirmation number?" As Patricia pulled up the reservation, I thought about the pattern that had brought me here. It started in childhood. Jessica was the baby, the dramatic one, the one who needed special attention. I was the responsible one, the quiet achiever, the one who could handle herself. When Jessica failed algebra, I tutored her every night while maintaining my own 4.0 GPA. When she wrecked the car at 17, I paid the deductible from my college savings so Dad wouldn't lose his insurance. When she needed a co-signer for her apartment at 23, I put my credit on the line without hesitation. "I show 4 passengers on this reservation," Patricia continued. "Which 3 would you like to cancel?" "Cancel everyone except Rose Blackwood," I said clearly. "That's Blackwood. Since you're the primary purchaser, the cancellation fees will be waived and the credit will return to your account. The other passengers will be notified of the cancellation. Is that acceptable?" "Perfect." 3 clicks, 3 cancellations, 3 people who'd taken my generosity as weakness for the last time. Next, I called the Grand Wailea. The concierge, Kalani, answered with warm professionalism. I'd spoken with him several times while planning the trip, ensuring my father's dietary restrictions were noted. that Jessica's room had the ocean view she'd specifically requested, that the spa appointments were booked for my mother's birthday. Ms. Blackwood, how wonderful to hear from you. I trust you're excited about your stay. There's been a change in plans, I said. I need to modify the reservation to one room, one guest. Of course. Would you prefer to keep the ocean view suite? Yes, please. I've made that adjustment. You'll receive a refund of $2,250 for the second room. Is there anything else? I thought about the activities I'd booked, the sunset cruise Jessica had insisted on, the helicopter tour my father wanted, the spa package for my mother. Cancel all the pre-booked activities except the solo hiking tour. Certainly, those refunds will process within 3 to 5 business days. By the time I finished modifying every reservation, I'd recovered nearly $14,000. But the money wasn't the point. The point was the pattern I was finally breaking. I walked back toward Gate 76 with the measured pace I used when entering negotiations. My family hadn't noticed my approach. Jessica was laughing at something on her phone, probably already crafting her Hawaii Instagram posts. Mom was reorganizing her carry-on. Dad was reading news on his tablet, occasionally glancing at his watch. I'm heading to my gate now, I announced calmly. Mom looked up, confused. What? This is our gate. Not anymore. Jessica's eyes narrowed, her voice taking on that sharp edge she used when things weren't going her way. What are you talking about? You're not going to Hawaii. The laugh that burst from Jessica was harsh, disbelieving. Stop being dramatic, Rose. God, you always do this. Make everything about you. I pulled up the cancellation confirmation and turned my phone toward them. I canceled your tickets, all 3. The silence that followed was absolute. Dad stood slowly, his face shifting from confusion to anger. You did what? Jessica snatched my phone, reading the screen like it was written in a foreign language. No, 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 this is fake. This is... She looked up at me, real panic creeping into her voice for the first time. Why would you do this? I booked this trip. You didn't book anything, I said quietly. You announced it. I paid for it. Every cent. That's not... Jessica turned to our parents. Tell her she can't do this. Dad was already on his phone, dialing customer service, his voice tight as he repeated the confirmation code. I watched as his expression changed, as the reality set in. When he lowered the phone, his face was red. How could you do this to your family? How could you? I countered, my voice steady. How could you watch her hit me and blame me for it? How could you let her take credit for everything I've done for years? How could you treat me like an ATM while telling me I'm too serious, too uptight, too difficult? Mom stepped forward, tears gathering. Rose, sweetheart, we didn't mean... Yes, you did, I interrupted gently. You meant it every time you chose her side without asking questions. Every time you accepted her version of events. Every time you told me to be the bigger person while she faced no consequences. Please! Jessica grabbed my wrist, her voice cracking. I'm sorry about the slap. I was stressed. You know how I get before trips. I carefully removed her hand. You're 26, Jessica. When do you plan to stop using stress as an excuse? The boarding announcement chimed overhead. Now boarding Group A for flight 447 to Honolulu. My group? Dad stepped in front of me, his voice low and threatening. If you get on that plane, don't bother coming back. I met his eyes directly, something I'd rarely done before. I'm not the one who left, Dad. You all left me behind years ago. You just expected me to keep paying for the privilege of being excluded. I stepped around him and handed my boarding pass to the gate agent, who scanned it with a sympathetic smile. As I walked down the jet bridge, I could hear the commotion behind me. Jessica's voice rising to a shriek, Mom crying, Dad arguing with the gate agent, demanding to speak to a manager. The business class seat I'd booked for myself was spacious, comfortable. I'd originally booked premium economy for all of us, but after the cancellations, I'd used some of the credit to upgrade just my seat. As the plane pushed back from the gate, I looked through the window one last time. My family was still there, Jessica pacing frantically, Mom sitting with her head in her hands, Dad on his phone, probably trying to find last-minute tickets he couldn't afford. The flight attendant offered me champagne. I accepted, took a sip, and pulled out my laptop. I had 3 strategic proposals to review for Monday's board meeting, but first I opened a new document and began typing. Boundary setting protocol, a strategic analysis. By the time we reached cruising altitude, I'd outlined a comprehensive plan for restructuring every relationship in my life that operated on an imbalanced power dynamic. My family was just the beginning. The week in Hawaii was transformative, but not in the way anyone expected. I spent my mornings hiking solo through rainforests, my afternoons working remotely from the beach, my evenings enjoying room service while video conferencing with my team in LA. The hotel staff, who'd been briefed on the family situation, treated me with extra kindness. Kalani personally ensured I had everything I needed. On day 3, I received an email from my company's CEO. One of my strategic proposals had been fast-tracked for implementation. The projected revenue increase would trigger my performance bonus, adding another $150,000 to my annual compensation. I celebrated with a solo sunset sail, watching the sky turn gold while dolphins played in the boat's wake. My phone, meanwhile, was a disaster zone of missed calls and messages. 43 from Jessica, 67 from Mom, 29 from Dad. Hundreds of texts ranging from rage to manipulation to desperate pleading. I didn't read them. Instead, I forwarded everything to my attorney, Marcus Huang, whom I'd retained years ago for contract reviews, but who also happened to specialize in family law. "Document everything," he advised during our call. "If they escalate, we'll be prepared." On day 5, I discovered through Instagram that Jessica had started a GoFundMe called "Help Us Get to Hawaii After Family Betrayal." She'd raised $340 from her followers, mostly small amounts from people who'd bought into her victim narrative. The comments were split between sympathy and skepticism, especially after someone pointed out that she'd been bragging about treating her family to the trip just days before. The real shock came when I returned to Los Angeles. My apartment building security called me before I even reached the lobby. "Ms. Blackwood, we wanted to inform you that your family has attempted to access your apartment multiple times this week. We've followed protocol and denied entry, but they've been quite persistent." I thanked them and made a mental note to increase my security deposit for additional measures. The confrontation came 2 days later at my office. I was presenting quarterly analytics to the executive team when reception called. My family was in the lobby demanding to see me. I excused myself professionally and went down to meet them, bringing Marcus and our head of security, James, with me. They looked different, smaller somehow. Jessica's usual polish was gone, replaced by smudged mascara and a wrinkled t-shirt. Mom's eyes were red-rimmed. Dad looked older, defeated. 5 minutes, I said, leading them to a conference room. Dad started immediately. "You humiliated us. Do you have any idea what people are saying?" "The truth?" I suggested. "That we're users," Jessica spat. "That we're terrible people. Someone sent Mom the video from the airport. It's everywhere." I hadn't known about the video, but I wasn't surprised. And, Mom's voice cracked. "Rose, our entire church has seen it. The neighbors, my book club, everyone knows." "Everyone knows what exactly?" I asked calmly. "That Jessica hit me, that you defended her, that I paid for a trip she took credit for. Which part embarrasses you?" "The part where you abandoned your family," Dad said firmly. Marcus stepped forward slightly, his presence a subtle reminder that I wasn't alone. "Ms. Blackwood didn't abandon anyone. She simply stopped subsidizing behavior that was detrimental to her well-being." Jessica laughed bitterly. "She hired a lawyer? Really, Rose?" "I've had a lawyer for years," I replied. "You just never knew because you never asked about my life beyond what I could do for you." "We're family," Mom pleaded. "Family forgives." "Family also respects," I countered. "Family also appreciates. Family also tells the truth. When was the last time any of you did any of those things?" The silence stretched until Dad broke it. "What do you want? An apology? Fine. We're sorry." "I don't want anything," I said simply. "That's what you don't understand. For the first time in my life, I don't want anything from any of you. I don't need your approval. I don't need your love with conditions attached. I don't need to buy your affection or silence your criticism with gifts." "So that's it?" Jessica's voice was small. "You're just done with us?" "I'm done with the old pattern," I clarified. "If you want a relationship with me, it starts with accountability, real accountability, therapy, family counseling, actual change, not just promises when you need something." "Therapy?" Dad scoffed. "We don't need—" "Then we're done here," I stood. "James will escort you out." As they left, Mom turned back one last time. "The Rose I raised would never do this." "You're right," I agreed. "The Rose you raised would have kept quiet, kept paying, kept accepting blame for things she didn't do. That Rose is gone." The aftermath was messier than the confrontation. Jessica's GoFundMe got shut down after someone reported it as fraud, pointing out that she'd claimed to have paid for the trip herself. She lost her retail job when the airport video went viral and customers recognized her. The manager, it turned out, had dealt with her drama before and used this as the final straw. Dad's ego took the biggest hit. His golf buddies had seen the video, heard the real story. The narrative he'd built of being a successful father with 2 accomplished daughters crumbled when people realized he'd been living off my success while criticizing me for being too focused on work. Mom tried to salvage things through guilt, sending me childhood photos, writing long emails about how much she'd sacrificed raising us. I forwarded them all to my therapist, Dr. Rebecca Liu, whom I'd started seeing immediately after Hawaii. "You're grieving," she explained during our 3rd session. "Not the family you lost, but the family you never had, the family you deserved but didn't get." She was right. The grief was real, but so was the relief. 3 months later, my life had restructured completely. I'd moved to a new apartment in a building with better security and a doorman who knew not to let anyone up without explicit permission. I joined a hiking club where I met people who shared my interests without expecting me to fund their adventures. I'd even started dating someone, a software engineer named David, who insisted on splitting checks and planning dates together. The professional growth was even more dramatic. Without the constant emotional drain of my family's drama, my performance at work skyrocketed. I led the acquisition of 2 major accounts, developed a predictive analytics model that increased revenue by 18%, and was promoted to Vice President of Strategic Analytics. The compensation package pushed my total income over $500,000. I celebrated by booking a solo trip to New Zealand, something I'd always wanted to do but never had because family vacations took priority. The last direct contact came 6 months after the airport incident. Jessica sent a long message through LinkedIn, of all places, since I'd blocked her everywhere else. "Rose, I know you hate me, but I need you to know something. I got a job, a real one, at a marketing firm. Entry level, but it's a start. I'm seeing a therapist. She says I have narcissistic tendencies stemming from being enabled my whole life. I'm working on it. I'm not asking for money or forgiveness or anything. I just wanted you to know. I'm trying to become someone who deserves a sister like you." I didn't respond, but I didn't delete it either. Mom and Dad took longer to attempt accountability. Their first real step came 8 months later, a letter delivered through Marcus. "We've started counseling," it read. "The therapist asked us to write down every time you helped us, every time we dismissed it, every time we chose Jessica's narrative over yours. The list is 12 pages long. We're not asking you to forgive us. We're asking for the chance to earn the right to ask for forgiveness." I had Marcus respond that I would consider supervised communication after they'd completed a full year of therapy with documented progress. The real test came at month 10. Jessica posted on Instagram that she'd saved enough money to take herself on a weekend trip to San Diego. A modest trip, nothing fancy, but she'd paid for it herself. The caption read, "First vacation I've ever actually paid for. It feels different when it's yours." The comments were telling. Her friends congratulated her, but there was an undercurrent of awareness. People knew. The truth had a way of spreading, replacing the narrative she'd built over years. A year after the airport incident, I received an unexpected call from my grandmother, my dad's mother, whom I'd barely spoken to in years. "I saw the video," she said simply. "Took me a while to figure out the internet, but I saw it. I also saw what you've been doing all these years. Your father never told me, but I did some digging. 28 years old and you've been carrying that family since you were a teenager." "Grandma, Don't apologize," she interrupted. "I'm calling to apologize. I should have seen it, should have stepped in. I let your father become the man he is, and I let him raise you the same way. That stops now." She'd written me into her will, she explained, removing Dad entirely. "He's gotten enough from the women in his life," she said firmly. "Time he learned to stand on his own." The inheritance wasn't massive, but it wasn't about the money. It was about recognition, validation from someone who'd finally seen the truth. 15 months after Hawaii, I agreed to a mediated family session. Dr. Liu attended with me, Marcus waited outside, and my family sat across from me looking genuinely different. Jessica had lost the performative edge to her appearance. She looked softer, more genuine. Mom seemed smaller, more fragile. Dad appeared uncomfortable but present. "We'd like to start," their therapist began, "with acknowledgments. Not apologies yet, just acknowledgments of what happened." For 2 hours, they laid out the pattern, every incident, every dismissal, every time they'd chosen the easy narrative over the truth. Jessica admitted to the graduation party, the apartment, the engagement ring loan she'd never repaid. She pulled out a check for $5,000, the first installment of what she owed me. "I can't pay it all back yet," she said quietly, "but I will, with interest." Mom acknowledged the years of emotional labor she'd placed on me, the parentification, the expectation that I'd always be the stable one without ever needing support myself. Dad's acknowledgement was the hardest to hear. "I was threatened by your success," he admitted. "You accomplished more by 25 than I had by 50. Instead of being proud, I diminished you. I made you small so I could feel bigger." I didn't forgive them that day. Forgiveness would take time, maybe years, maybe never completely. But I agreed to structured contact, monthly dinners at neutral restaurants, holidays on my terms, boundaries firm and non-negotiable. The first dinner was awkward, the second slightly better. By the sixth, we could almost pretend to be a normal family, except now everyone paid for their own meal. Jessica got promoted at her job. She showed me the offer letter, proud of the $45,000 salary she'd negotiated herself. "It's not what you make," she said, "but it's mine." "That's what matters," I told her, and meant it. 2 years after the airport incident, I was featured in a Forbes article about women in tech. The interviewer asked about work-life balance, about managing family expectations with professional demands. "I learned that balance doesn't mean giving equally," I said. "It means giving appropriately. Some relationships deserve more investment than others. Some people earn your support through reciprocal respect. Others expect it as an entitlement. Learning the difference changed my life." The article went viral, not because of my professional achievements, but because of that quote. I received hundreds of messages from people in similar situations, carrying families who didn't appreciate them, funding lives while being criticized for their choices. I started a blog, then a podcast, discussing boundaries in family relationships. The irony wasn't lost on me that Jessica, who'd always wanted to be an influencer, watched as I accidentally became one by telling the truth about our family. "I'm proud of you," she said one day, completely unprompted. "Not for the success or the money, for standing up for yourself when I made it impossible." It was the first genuine compliment she'd ever given me. Dad took longer to adjust. His pride had taken the biggest hit, but eventually he found his way to something resembling humility. He started volunteering at a financial literacy center, teaching people how to budget, how to save, how to not depend on others for their stability. "I'm teaching what I should have learned," he told me during one dinner. Mom joined a support group for parents who'd enabled toxic dynamics. She became an advocate for other mothers struggling with similar patterns, sharing her story as a cautionary tale. "I lost my daughter for a year because I couldn't see her," she said in one meeting I attended for support. "Really see her, not just what I expected her to be." The healing wasn't linear. There were setbacks, arguments, moments where old patterns tried to resurface. But each time, we caught them faster, addressed them cleaner. 3 years after the airport, we took another trip together, not to Hawaii. That place belonged to my solo transformation. We went to a cabin in Colorado, a modest rental that everyone contributed to equally. We cooked together, hiked together, played board games without anyone keeping score of who won more. On the last night, sitting around a fire pit, Jessica raised her beer. "To Rose," she said, "for saving our family by refusing to save us anymore." It was the most honest toast anyone had ever given me. The video from the airport still circulated occasionally, usually in threads about toxic families or boundary setting. I'd see comments defending my family, calling me cruel, saying I should have just accepted the slap and moved on. Others understood, deeply and personally, what it meant to finally say no. I never responded to any of them. The truth didn't need my defense. What I learned through all of this was simple but revolutionary. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's exploitation. Family without respect isn't family. It's obligation. And sometimes the cruelest thing you can do is continue enabling the people who refuse to grow. My bank account recovered from the canceled Hawaii trip within a month. My family took 3 years to recover from the truth. But we did recover, differently, better, more honestly than before. I still work in analytics, now as a senior vice president making more money than my family knows. I still live alone, by choice, in an apartment that no one can access without permission. I still take solo trips, finding myself in places where no one expects me to be anything other than who I am. But now, when my phone rings and it's Jessica, I answer. When Mom texts, I respond. When Dad asks for advice about his volunteer work, I give it freely. Because now, for the first time in 31 years, we're actually a family. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. The slap at the airport was meant to put me in my place. Instead, it freed me from a place I should have left years earlier. Jessica's hand across my face was the wake-up call I didn't know I needed. I never thanked her for that slap, but maybe I should. It was the catalyst for everything that came after. The boundaries, the growth, the truth, the healing. Without that moment of absolute clarity in Terminal 4, I might have spent another decade funding their lives while disappearing from my own. Now, when I tell this story, people always ask if I regret canceling their tickets. The answer is always the same. My only regret is not doing it sooner. The last time we were all together, Jessica pulled me aside. I tell people about what happened, she said. Not the version where I'm the victim, the real version. Where I'm the villain who became better. Where you're the hero who saved yourself first, and then gave us the chance to save ourselves. We're not heroes or villains, I told her. We're just people who finally learned how to be honest. She nodded, understanding in a way she never could have before. Maybe that's the most heroic thing of all. Standing in my apartment now, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline, I think about that family in the airport 3 years ago. The 4 people who thought they knew their roles, their places, their scripts. The slap that changed everything. The walk to that quiet corner where I chose myself for the first time. The moment I realized that setting a boundary wasn't cruel. It was the kindest thing I could do for all of us. My family still doesn't know my exact net worth, and I plan to keep it that way. Not out of spite, but out of wisdom. Some boundaries, once set, should never be moved. Some lessons once learned should never be forgotten. And some slaps, as painful as they are, wake you up to a life you didn't know you were allowed to live. That's my story, the real one. The one where nobody's perfect, everybody's accountable, and the hero isn't the person who saves everyone. It's the person who finally stops trying to,